And it's a tax, therefore. Our lost purchasing power, what we have to pay more for a bag of groceries today than we did 5 years ago, comes out of our pocket, comes out of our earning capacity. That is value which we should have, but it's been taken from us through a process that we call inflation, but in reality it's a hidden tax. It's a tax that is more vicious than any other tax you can imagine. There are no exemptions, no deductions. And those with the least amount of money pay it to the highest degree. I mean, it's the most unfair, most unjust tax you can imagine. And that is what inflation is. Inflation is the result of being able to create money out of nothing. And that is the power we have given to the Federal Reserve System. Therefore, we can say that the Federal Reserve System is the agency of a hidden tax called inflation. I feel that our paper currency must eventually be backed by gold or silver if we are to have an economy that will protect the purchasing power of the common man. We must have it, furthermore, to protect our freedoms, because if we lose our economy, if we become totally dependent economically upon the state, then we've lost our freedom. We become vassals of the state. And all of this can be traced back to the fact that our monetary unit is completely valueless, or let's say it is valued only at the whim of our leaders. And that is a very precarious position to be in. I don't think anybody, if they thought it through, would ever say, that's the system I want, and yet that's the system we have. Congress receives its funding from various sources. Obviously, we think of taxes right away, and there's no question that taxes are a major source of funding. However, we know that Congress does not need income taxes at all, or any other kind of taxes for that matter, to fund its operation, as long as it has the ability to collect this hidden tax called inflation. If it were to stop all taxes whatsoever, it could still continue to spend exactly as it is doing, simply by inflating the currency a little more than it has been in the past. Isn't that an amazing thing? Congress does not need taxes, and yet they talk constantly about taxes. They want us to focus on the taxes, because this we can measure. We fill out the form at the end of each year, but a GEO is a 30% or a 40 or a 50% bite. And we can see the tax bill on our sales receipt, what we paid to the state, and we can look at those numbers and we complain about them. But the bigger menace is this hidden tax called inflation. We never see those numbers, except that somehow at the end of the year we worked like dogs and we got a little bit of a raise, but our standard of living went down. And that's the tax I'm talking about. This is where Congress gets a great deal of its money, if not most of it, and where I think it plans to get most of it in the future. The solution to the problem of fiat money is to stop it, to eliminate it. We must get rid of it. We must phase out the Federal Reserve notes, the Federal Reserve System, and I'm talking now about the United States. All countries in the world face this same problem. We must phase out fiat money. We can't just tolerate it. We can't just say, well, if it's only 3% or 4%, we could live with that. But people don't stay at 3 or 4%. Historically, political leaders and bankers never stay at 3 or 4% if they can go to 4.5%. And they won't stay at 4.5% if they can go to 5%, and so forth. So we must get rid of the fiat money system. How do you do that? Well, the first step, of course, the big step, the biggest imaginable step, is for people to realize that they even have one. I mean, how many people walking up and down the streets that go into the polls each year and elect their leaders, how many people know that we have a fiat money system? How are we going to change that unless we have an understanding, an educational foundation at the electoral level? So this is where we have to start. And then having done that, assuming we have created an understanding of the problems and assuming we have created some kind of a political will on the part of the people to bring about reform, then how do you do it? Well, you can't do it all at once. It has to be eased out. We didn't get it all at once. It came to us in little steps over 50, 60, 70 years. That, in my opinion, is how we have to ease out of it. Because if you were to cut the system right now, just completely cut the tree down, we'd have the biggest economic collapse the world has ever seen. So they've got us somewhat, you see. You can't, we're kind of like the drug addict that is so deeply involved that a cold turkey would probably result in death. So I'm sorry to have to say that, but I think that's a realistic appraisal. We must ease out of this system we're in, and we have to start as soon as possible. We have to anticipate that it's going to take probably 30 or 40 years to make it happen.